Shore. They got 10 towns that are spread in 35 miles, and they've got a bike trail that runs through all three of them. So
nice.
you can stay in one side and ride 20 miles and be at a whole different town, a whole different setting, a different beach. It's almost it's duplicated. It's after the Jersey Shore, where every town has its own private beach and its own downtown, and then you go a mile down.
The
and you
boardwalk.
Yeah.
Oh, very nice. Well,
So we're going to see
it's
what that's like.
7 o'clock, so I suppose we should get started.
Yeah, I'll send you pictures.
Yes, we do.
It is 7 p.m. on Monday, August 17th, so I'm calling to order the meeting of the Richfield Housing and Redevelopment Authority. Please note the attendance. The first item on our agenda is approval of the minutes of the regular HRA meeting of July 20th, 2015.
I'll move the minutes.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any comments? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We've approved the minutes. Next, we have the approval of the HRA agenda.
So moved.
I guess I better second that. Huh?
All right, it's been
Second.
moved and seconded to approve this evening's agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We've approved our agenda. All right, our next item of business is consideration of the resolutions approving the 2016 proposed HRA budget and tax levy and the 2015 revised HRA budget. Mr. Devich.
Thank you, Chair Supple and members of the HRA. The bylaws of the HRA require that an annual budget be submitted to HRA commissioners for approval, and accordingly, the 2016 proposed budget and tax levy and a revised 2015 budget are before you for approval. In addition, Minnesota state statutes require adoption of a preliminary levy from each taxing authority. That includes HRAs. And this must be submitted to the Hennepin County Auditor by September 15th, 2015. It's the same for every year, September 15th date. Any amendments to the budget which would increase the tax levy must be made before that certification on September 15th. No increases can be made after that date, only reduction. The tax levy, as proposed, is the maximum levy established by law and represents an 8.64% increase from the previous year's levy. But let me just explain that a little bit. Under Minnesota statutes, there's a very careful formula that says what an HRA can levy, and it's a very small percentage of the overall market value of that jurisdiction. And for the past many years, that maximum amount that we could levy has been going down. And we take the maximum levy each year. But again, for the past several years, we have been reduced in the amount of levy that we're able to take. The total increase, 8.64%, sounds like a lot. It's $39,000 of an increase that's spread across the entire taxing jurisdiction. So in reality, it's very, very small in terms of its impact on properties within the taxing jurisdiction, which is the city of Richfield. And so at this point, I'm going to ask John Stark to make an overhead presentation explaining what our tax levy for 2016 is all about and what the 2016 budget is all about.
Thank you, Chair Supple and Commissioners. So we do have a PowerPoint I'm going to go through with you. Shouldn't take.
Before you start, did we get
Sure.
a packet like we do our other budget that shows all the detail?
Yes.
It was emailed. I gotta go look at that again. Okay, all right, my fault. I have the hard copy of the other budget. Okay, all right. I guess I was expecting it to be hard copy because the other one was. That was my fault.
So this is going to be just a very
I don't remember getting it.
brief
You don't remember?
overview, and any specific questions either I or Chris Regis or Mert Link can hopefully answer for you. Just as an overview, the Department of Community Development, the proposed budget for 2016 is about $4.5 million. About 30% of that budget comes from the city of Richfield, and the remaining 70% of the department's budget is funded through the HRA. And it's that portion I'm going to be talking about. I like to let you know who the staff is. I think it's important because you see Karen Barton and I, monthly at least. But there are a whole lot of people behind the scenes that make this work. So here is the positions, the people, and then the percentage of their time that's paid by the HRA. Myself as the director, 64% of my time. Karen Barton, the assistant director, almost 80% of her time. And then Julie Urban and Kate Aitchison, who job share the housing specialist position, and they run the Richfield Rediscovered and the New Home Program and Transformation Homes. And they are funded 100% by the HRA. Mert Link, who's here tonight, the department accountant, is funded 80% by the HRA, as is the department secretary, Jackie Scott. And I know you hear from Jackie. There is a new part-time employee proposed for 2016 that would be 45% funded by the HRA. We're still working on the exact job duties of that position, but we'll keep you informed on that. Matt Brillhart, who is a technician that really helps out across the board, 32% of his time. And then we have our Section 8 employees. Lynette Chambers in charge of the Section 8 program, and then Michelle Luna and Cindy Velde, which are both part-time folks. All of their funding comes through the federal government. So that is not, it's in the HRA's budget, but it's funded by those folks. So overall, the HRA budget is as follows. What you approved last year at this time was $3,605,000. The revised budget is a pretty good leap from that. It's $4,976,220. And then the 2016 proposed budget goes back below the 2015 budget to just a little over $3 million. And the reason we have such a big jump from what you approved last year to what we're asking you to approve as a revised budget is primarily due to a $1 million Met Council grant. This is the Lindale Gardens grant. We had this in our budget previously. We had it in the 2014 budget. That's when it was awarded. That's when we had hoped it would be expended. And so it didn't appear in the 2015 budget. Since that funds carries over, we need to have it in the budget. Additionally, there's a program called the Neighborhood Stabilization Program. It's a federal program that we've participated in. And we got, I think, $1.3 million for that program over time. And we purchased and rehabbed and sold houses. And all the money that we collected from that was considered program income. The federal government closed down that project formally, but then every year, the past couple of years, they've been telling us we can continue to utilize profits or income that we made through that program through the sale of houses. So we don't budget that because we don't want to count on it, but that's been happening, and so that's $196,000. So that's the lion's share of that increase. The 2016 decrease is primarily due to a reduction in Section 8 staffing. We've talked in the past about dwindling amounts received from the federal government for Section 8. So we did take one of our full-time Section 8 employees and push them to part-time. Our hope is that if the federal government can fund us the way they really ought to for Section 8, that we'll be able to bring that position back to full-time. Also, the elimination of a duplicative remodeling advisor service. We had two different sets of people providing remodeling advisory services for the city of Richfield. One is a gentleman named Dave Schaefer, and the other is through the Greater Minnesota Housing Corporation. And we just decided that was inefficient, and we will not be using Dave Schaefer's services anymore. And finally, the elimination of a rental conversion program. This is where we were taking single-family homes that had become rental properties, offering grants to get those back to home ownership. That program, despite how much we tried to market it, was just not utilized, and we think the money could be spent better elsewhere. This just gives you the history from 2009 to 2016. And, I think the takeaways there are, over time, the budget amount has gone down steadily through the years. I think we've made a diligent effort in the past 8 or so years to do that, because we saw dwindling revenues. And most of those dwindling revenues are a result of diminishing market value. And, that affects two things. That affects both the levy that Mr. Devich talked to you about, but also in our tax increment financing districts. In all of those districts, we collect 10% of the TIF to fund our administrative costs. Well, all those TIF districts, the market values had gone down on as well. And that's a big chunk of money that we're not collecting. The other thing that's important here is we show you how much we've expended every year. And with the exception of 2012, we never expend anywhere near what we've budgeted. And that's very different from the city budget. In the city budget, we often come pretty close to that. And the reason for that is the philosophy we've always used to budget the HRA is kind of I'll call it a best case scenario. We've got all these different redevelopment districts, different redevelopment projects, and we just budget as if every single one of them is going to happen, just in case we got lucky and all that did. The reality is that they don't always all happen, and that's the reason why we budget a certain amount, but then we only end up expending 2/3 of that amount.
Mhm.
Just wanted to mention some of the results that we've had since last year that we're proud of. 3 Richfield rediscovered homes have been completed or constructed so far this year, and then 2 affordable new homes as well. We've acquired 1 substandard home for future new construction, and we've allocated CDBG funding to provide deferred housing rehab loans to low-income households. Those are loans that are available to us through Hennepin County, but we further buy down the interest rates to make those more useful to folks in low-income brackets. 2 transformation home loans have been originated this year, and 1 loan in processing. And these are, again, the transformation home loans are the bigger projects. People would, big kitchen additions or second floors, big projects like that. We did have the 1 rental to home ownership loan originated. In 2.5 years of running that project, that was the first one we had. We implemented a housing marketing plan, and you heard the results of the marketing efforts that were done there. Section 8 vouchers were provided to over 300 families, and over 30 families are assisted through the Kids at Home program. In terms of redevelopment activities, with Lindale Station, that's really been finished or will be finished this summer with the completion of My Burger Caribou and additional tenant space. And as of a few weeks ago, we relocated the family statue. So if you haven't had a chance to look at the new location, do so, especially at night when it's lit up. With Lindale Gardens, we're hoping to see improvements happening there. The city council approved letting the land use approvals extend out to the end of the year, provided that the developer comes in by December and pulls building permits worth at least $10 million. We're still hoping that that is going to happen. In Cedar Corridor, the Cedar Point 2 housing redevelopment area, Boisclair was selected and hopes to start construction next year. And we are receiving a lot of interest from developers in the area south of 66th Street. And finally, both the Richfield, Bloomington, Honda, Mitsubishi, which is now open for business, despite what our chief building official thinks should be the case, and Audi of Richfield should be under construction within the next couple of months. And then other initiatives, the Penn Avenue Streetscape Improvements Program. You'll see a lot of that happening soon. We've ordered the light poles, we've ordered the benches that should be going in. The Lindale wayfinding signage, that's been a little delayed based on input we received from you and from the Planning Commission that they want to make sure everything is being properly coordinated with both the private development that's happening out there and with planned improvements on 66th Street. So some of that's in a little bit of a holding pattern. Marketing, we've spent and will continue to spend funding on marketing our programs to make sure they're well utilized. The Energy Efficient Homes Rebate Program is a new program. The Fix Up Fund Home Improvement Loan Write-Down Program, again, that's what I'd mentioned to you about trying to get interest rates lower for folks. $450,000 in the Cedar Corridor, and then the housing policy development that's come before you in a few different pieces, and we're going to bring you back a final that has all of them put together in one document for you. And then local funding of Section 8, which in 2015 we're proposing $20,460. Actually, we've already spent that, I believe, or sent it in. And then next year, $22,000. And while we're on Section 8, I should mention, when we talked about, and this has been a while ago, probably 18 months ago, we talked about the Section 8 budget and some of the issues we've had over the years. One of the things we learned is that we didn't understand for decades how HUD was separating out what they thought we should be spending on vouchers and what they thought we should be spending on administrative costs. And so we've now, for the first time, which probably we should have done 20 years ago, established completely separate funds for those two activities. So that should clear up a lot of the issues there. And then finally, maybe not finally, but some of the numbers. And, you know, Chris can talk to you more about this, but it's where our funding sources are. The taxes, which is the levy that we talked about. You know, it's roughly $458,000, $498,000 for next year. Intergovernmental revenues, does that include, is that our increment there too? In intergovernmental? No. And grants. Yep, CDBG and grants. Miscellaneous revenues. And that might be, I'm looking for where the TIF admin is. Isn't showing up this way. Yeah, okay. Yeah. And then transfers, which is basically money moving around. Yeah, I probably should have Chris explaining this slide, but you know, how we expend those funds. Personnel is a big part of it. Other services and charges, everything, a lot of things fall under that umbrella. And, you know, that's the details you've got in the budget book goes through all of that. And I'm sorry that you hadn't had more chance to review that. The proposed levy, as Steve said, is a $39,000 increase, or almost $40,000 increase from 2015. But if you look at that, it's still well below where it was in 2009, 2010, and 2011, just now catching back up to where it had been.
Yeah, if I can just interject, if there's two takeaways out of this budget presentation, they would be as follows. One, the budget that we have for 2016 is about $3 million. It's half of what the budget was in 2010. And if that slide could go back up again. Yeah, the one with showing the graph. I mean, just, again, even taking the maximum levy, take a look at what we're levying. We're not even, we're levying far less than what we levied back in 2009 and 2010. And so, you know, we're operating the HRA with a lot less funding than we have in the past. I think we're still getting a lot accomplished, and I think we're getting a lot of bang for the buck, but we just don't have the resources we had even 5 years ago. And so that causes us to be more selective. It causes us to really take a close look and really reevaluate the positions that we have and which positions we need to go to have going forward, and which positions we can't afford to keep. And we've done some of that during this budget process. So it's getting a little tougher to deliver those services with the money that we have.
And this slide pretty much shows the same thing. It's what we've levied versus what the maximum is, and we have been levying at the max since 2009. I believe we've been levying at the max since 2007 or 8. So that's been the HRA's longstanding practice. So I know that was quick and just kind of an overview, but like I said, Chris is here, Mert's here, or I can try to answer questions as well.
So when I looked over the materials that you sent to us, it mentioned in there that we were expecting a revenue drop and that we wanted to reduce the reliance on the Housing and Redevelopment Fund. Is that because of what you said with the market value in this graph, that there's just less revenue there for us, or is it more to do with the federal funding from HUD?
No, that piece is specific to the decreasing amount of revenue in our TIF districts due to market values going down. And some of that too is we're trying to be as conservative as we can in what we think those TIF districts are going to do in the future in terms of market values. Hopefully we're being overly conservative and those market values will climb.
So we're just planning ahead to make sure we have enough, okay.
Madam Chair, you know, one of the things that I really, and I've already gone over the city budget that we got, that I really like, that I'd like to see in here, is when you guys are addressing a goal that was made, can you put that down? Because you have in here. You know, we outlined our strategic goals, and I think that's so good to say, look, and it really shows, first of all, that we're collaborating and working together, and that staff's listening to us, and then you have the proof to show us. I think that's really great. And there's so many of them in here, and I don't see them labeled like I did in the other budget. The other thing, if you send this email, would you send it as HRA budget on the email note rather than memos? That would probably track my eye. I guess I was expecting a hard copy because we got the other one hard copy. So I did find it. I'll pass this over if you want to thumb through that. It's really nice to see some of the, I think what we do with the Section 8 program on the limited dollars that we have is amazing. And what we can do also to help some of those who need help in their homes who don't have high incomes as well.
Yeah, Section 8 is a challenge in so many ways. You know, it's not only providing the housing vouchers, but as the federal government cuts back on other social services that have nothing to do with housing, in a lot of cases, our Section 8 employees become people's social workers, you know, just for lack of them having those other resources that they need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know we have some tough cases.
A question was raised earlier about how the housing visioning group was funded. Did that just come out of staff time since there's not a separate line for it in the budget?
Yes, I mean, it was, you know, staff time after hours primarily, but it was salaried employees, so it was free to the HRA.
Probably worthwhile, though. I'm getting a lot of people involved, and some of these people I don't think knew what was, I think they learned a lot. Some of these people had never served before.
No, and I think that they will be future leaders in the community.
I think so,
in
too.
a lot of ways.
So some of these things are really worthwhile, I think, that you spend your time on.
Are there any other questions? Commissioner Gepner?
HRA levies based on the tax capacity of the community? No?
It's based on market value. It's a percentage of market value.
And that went down for a while and now it's going back up?
Yes, it's been trending down the last 4 or 5 years, and now it creeped up. I mean, I think last year I mentioned that market values had already gone up, but they always go back and use the previous year's market value. So last year's market value had started the increase, so now we're using that market value for this year. So that's why it's gone up, and hopefully market values will continue to creep up a little bit so we can, you know, get a little bit larger levy each year and still have it spread over the entire community and things like that.
So was that the reason for the
Oh yeah,
crest
when
and
the real
graph?
estate market tanked and
Yeah.
all the market values went down with it, then that's basically what we're working off over the decreased market values.
Thanks.
So in general, if we have an awful lot of projects coming in the door, what are we gonna do about capacity? Because things do seem to be kicking up, and we've got the 77th Street reconstruction, we got people knocking at the door about what they'd like to do there.
That's, Madam Chair and Commissioner Gotel, that's part of why we have this part-time employee earmarked for 2016 and don't have their job duties exactly pinned down yet. But we're going to be planning for that. We know that there's additional workload. So we're just trying to figure out the best way to spread out that workload.
Okay, all right.
Are there any other questions? Then I have a protocol question. When we do this motion, do we need to read the entire resolution into the record, or can we just summarize it? Just summarize it? All right. Is there someone that would like to move that we adopt the attached resolutions for this 2016 proposed Housing and Redevelopment Authority budget and the tax levy and the 2015 revised Housing and Redevelopment Authority budget? Is there anyone who would like to move that?
I'll move it.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to adopt the attached resolutions approving the 2016 proposed Housing and Redevelopment Authority budget and tax levy and the 2015 revised Housing and Redevelopment Authority budget. Is there any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, we've adopted the two resolutions. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is the HRA discussion items. Is there anything that anyone would like to bring up?
I don't have anything pending.
All right, I would like to mention that I attended the community meeting about the Cedar Point 2 development that the Boyclair Corporation put on, and our city staff was there, and it was very well attended. I was very pleased to see that pretty much we filled up the space that we had, so it was very well attended.
It's nice to hear.
All right, the executive director's report.
Chair, Supple, members of the HRA, I really don't have anything specific to talk about, I guess, in my report.
All right, well then that brings us to claims and payroll.
So moved.
I have some questions before you,
Oh, okay.
but we can move it anyway. It's not going to stand in the way of checks that already are written. Is the money to Enders for the LEED certification on some of the houses that they built?
Yeah, that is correct. We have a program to rebate some of the funding if they get a home. I don't think it's LEED certified. It's a different standard, but yes.
For the energy efficiency that they
Yes.
built into them and then I have another question where Kate Atchison got $150 for marketing, and that's for the money that you're going to spend for being at PennFest?
Oh, yeah.
I was being, it doesn't require an answer.
Yeah, that was for the Richfield and Bloom program, the gift cards that the recipients receive.
Okay.
It's very
I'll second the motion to approve the spending.
Are there any other questions or discussion? Okay, all in favor of approving the claims and payroll, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, seeing no further items on our agenda, we stand adjourned.